I'm going to start today's lecture off with a cheesy gimmick. Since it's about self and the environment, I've decided to show you the environment that myself here is in, that I teach here in Edna Bay. Looking out into the Pacific Ocean, standing here on our beach. As we come around, you'll see both the school and the housing. I think that's the best angle I can get. The school is the building in front, directly behind the tree. And the housing is right there behind it. So, anyway, that's what we see out our school window. So, the environment. Okay, well, the class is not about that kind of environment, but the environment in which you do business, whether you're a nonprofit or a for-profit, understanding that matters. Okay, and it especially matters in terms of your hiring environment. Okay, I grew up just north of and went to school in what flips between San Francisco and, I grew up in Seattle, and it flips between San Francisco and being the area with the most college degrees per capita of anywhere in the United States. Why is that important? Well, what that means is if you have a degree, if you have the technical qualifications to do most jobs, you're just like everybody else. You're very replaceable. That doesn't set you apart, doesn't make you special, and it doesn't get you to be able to have any sort of special status. Okay. I've also lived and worked in Bethel, which even in Alaska has the fewest per capita. Okay. And what that means there is that you have at the same time an unemployment rate that approaches 20% and 200 jobs sitting open. So why are those 200 jobs sitting open if unemployment is almost 20%? Because the people just don't have the qualifications needed to be able to hire the jobs. And the jobs that a lot of people are capable of doing, there's plenty of people to do. So you have both huge unemployment and huge numbers of unfilled jobs at the same time. So what does that mean for a person who's doing hiring in that particular environment? That means if you have somebody who is technically qualified to do a job, and that job has to be filled by someone with a particular set of qualifications, and they're kind of a personalities, they like to screw off, they don't work particularly hard, they're very hard to get rid of. You just have to manage what you have and make it work, because you're probably not going to be able to replace that person very easily. On the other hand, if it's a low-skill job, you can be quite flippant with the management of those. I mean, you shouldn't be, but you can, because you can fill that job that day. There's enough people trying to line up behind them to have, your job at AC or, your janitorial or any sort of the low-skill positions, you can fill immediately. Running the receiving home, we had to have at least half of our staff have BAs, which means we had to put up with a lot of people who had BAs who probably weren't a good fit for the job, but we had to have them just to stay open. So in understanding the environment where you're working in and the qualifications that you need to have are important. If that same place was open in Seattle and someone's a screw-off, you can just say, I'm sorry, good luck, but we're going to hire someone to replace you, because you can easily do so. So that's the first thing to understand. How easy is it going to be to replace? Both as the employee, but especially of those who are in management. Okay. Second thing that it's important to understand in terms of the environment in which you're operating is what is that particular environment's feelings about conflict. Is there avoidance of conflict? Is conflict seen as okay? Because if you as the manager are coming in and creating an environment where conflict is where you want conflict, you're okay with it, you're okay with people arguing heatedly, disagreeing, and causing quite the stir, but your environment's not, you're going to have a hard time retaining people. People are not going to feel comfortable working for you because they're going to feel that it's a very negative environment. On the other hand, if you are in a place, I don't know, Philadelphia is probably the place that I've been in that's the most comfortable with conflict, and you fear conflict, you avoid conflict, you're going to get run over. Everybody's going to take advantage of you. So making sure that the environment that you are trying to set as a manager matches the environment that people are comfortable with, that you're, the pool of people you're drawing from, is vital. And just having an understanding and a knowledge of it before you go in is important, because you're not going to be successful. You're going to have high turnover if you're mismatched, or you're going to get used and abused as the manager. Directiveness. It's not a term we use every day, but it's a term that many in the field use as far as what kind of an environment you're in, what kind of place. And what it means is, how likely are people to take initiative? Do they expect you to tell them the very next thing to do? Or are they empowered and they feel like they can figure out what they're supposed to do next? How closely do you need to monitor them? How much do you need to detail out exactly what you expected from them? And how much do you need to follow up to make sure that they're not? Because if you are a non-directive, you're a low directiveness manager with a high directiveness employee, what's going to happen is that person is going to finish what you tell them to do and then do nothing. And you're paying them to do nothing. On the other hand, if you're a high directiveness person and your people don't need it, they don't want it, you're going to drive them bonkers. The mismatch is either going to create a lot of wasted time or a lot of aggravated people. And so you got to understand who the people you work for, who the work for you are. Barrow, in the North Slope, especially Barrow, is so eclectic as far as the people from around the world that you're actually pretty likely to have both types. And and that's true in a lot of places. And you really need to be able to handle both types. And it's important that you understand which one everybody is, so that you identify, and so that you can tailor your style of management to the person you're working with. That you're either going to only hire one type, or make sure that only one type works for you, or that you're going to be flexible and be able to manage both types, but understanding which you have. That match is just vital. Okay? Interdependency. In a large place, Anchorage, Seattle, Los Angeles, there's very little. One of my favorite things that helped me understand that Alaska is different is I was working again in Bethel with the Office of Children's Services, and I heard that the ladies who ran the OCS in Bethel's boss was named Gladys Langdon. And I said, oh, that's interesting. I know Trajan Langdon's from Alaska, and that's the same last name. Okay, in Seattle, in Philadelphia, in many other large places, that would be a really interesting coincidence. Only in Alaska is that his mother. It's not just, an interesting coincidence they have the same last name. Gladys Langdon is Trajan Langdon, the basketball player's mother. And I didn't understand how small Alaska was until that point. Population was obviously not geographically, and how dependent and how much your reputation gets around, how much people know about you before you ever even say anything, because there's just not a chance to get lost in the shuffle. Okay, so if you're managing in a large environment, you're not too worried about interdependence. But if you're managing a small, you are. Okay, that person that you're working with, say if you're in, Wainwright or Akasuk or in Point Hope or any of the villages, and even in Barrow, likely is either related to you, related to someone else you work with, or is in some other way vital to your success in the community, that you can't just let someone go in a rather or manage them aggressively or mistreat them at work or refuse to hire them on grounds that are not great and get away with it. It is totally going to affect your place in the community and your ability to function therein. If you're sitting with that person, at the dinner table, or that they're living 3 houses down, or they're your grandmother's cousin, it's just different. It's just different. So understanding that there is a level of interdependence where it exists is vital. It's you have to be able to function. You have to understand, if I mismanage so and so, or if I'm too aggressive with so and so, that the way it's going to impact me beyond that, I don't feel like I'm articulating it very well, but it's just it's particular to small places, but it couldn't be more important. And a related topic on it is something called tribalism that you need to be aware of. And when they say tribalism, it's not talking about tribes in any sort of native capacity. It's coincidental as far as the word. What it means is that it's more talking about families, that in certain communities, in certain places, families feel like the way they take care of each other is through employment, and that a certain family will run a certain place, or that they will definitely band together. And so if you go against Fred, Joe might be pissed off at you. If you need to let go Sally, Mary might either refuse to work for you too, might refuse to do business with you, that they try to make it very what's called expensive, and they don't necessarily mean monetarily, although sometimes, but at least emotionally expensive, so that it requires a lot of doing to get rid of anyone, to assign tasks to anyone who doesn't want them to have it. That you're not just having to deal with me, but you're going to have to deal with my whole family if I don't like the way that you manage me, or I don't like that you don't hire me, or I don't like that you let me go. And understanding that you can't do anything about it. It either exists or it doesn't. And it's up to you as the manager to understand the implications, that if I pull this string, what are going to be the effects of it? To have analyzed the environment you're in, and to be fully aware of what is going to come from your actions. Okay. The most important point, though, about an environment, in the end, is, for the most part, you, as the management, set what the expectations are. Okay. You may have to function within the environment, but to a degree, you decide what that environment is. You decide what is okay, what's not okay, what gets rewarded, what gets disciplined. Who are we going to hire? What kind of people? What kind of hours are we going to keep? What is going to be okay? Okay. You come in and you try to change it too quick, or you try to, set people. Sure, that can sometimes have a negative effect and bite you back. But over the long term, you as the manager of the company, you as the manager of your division or whatever, decide what is going to be acceptable. Okay? In smaller communities, that's going to be less true, but it's still going to be true. Okay? If you're running a school, or if you're running a business, you get to decide what your environment is, and you're not powerless to change it. Okay? Somebody's eventually going to leave on their own, and you're the person who's going to